Welcome. My name is Ines Žižić, and today I have an honor and real treat for you. An exclusive conversation with none other than the legendary David Icke. Known as the world's most prominent theorist of alternative viewpoints, David has spent over 35 years fearlessly challenging conventional narratives and exploring some of the life's most profound and controversial questions. David is, of course, a globally renowned public speaker, author, and researcher who has written nearly 30 books, including his latest work, The Reveal, The Next Stage of Human Awareness. You can find his latest book, as well as all of his other works, on his official website at davidicke.com. Through his work, David pushes the boundaries of awareness, exploring global power structures, the nature of reality and human consciousness. Despite his insights, many of which have been proven right over the decades, David has faced significant censorship, ridicule, and controversy. In 2020, his content was removed from all major social platforms under the pretext of misinformation policies. In 2022, he was banned from entering Schengen area, with officialdom citing concerns that his presence could disturb public order. Despite this, David continues to inspire millions. Also known as the Dot Connector, he is very much active through his website and video platform Iconic, also on X, BitChute, Rumble, and Telegram. It's truly a privilege to have him with us today. So let's get started. David, welcome.
Thank you.
It's a great honor. It's a great honor to have you as my guest on Atma podcast. Thank you for taking your time to join us, especially considering how busy you are in your tour and the launch of your new book. I really much appreciate it.
No problem.
Of course, before I begin, I want to say thank you to our mutual friend, artist. He's an artist designer, Goran Dojčinović, who actually was the person who helped me to make this interview possible. So thank you, Goran. Hvala, Goran. Okay, so
yeah, I know Goran from Aussie.
Yeah, Goran. He lives in Melbourne, but actually he's from Serbia. He's
yeah, I know. Yeah, well, I'm banned from Australia now, so I've been since 2019. So there you go.
There you go. And about banning, you know, I was a little bit at first sad because I couldn't invite you in Croatia. I wanted to invite you to Split. It's a beautiful town in Dalmatia. In Croatia, the most beautiful, you know, climate area, people. But unfortunately, I know that you have a ban since 2022. You got a restriction from Schengen area because of Dutch officialdom citing public order concerns. So 2 years later now, what's going on about that? Is that ban lifted or it's prolonged?
Well, it's been prolonged. First of all, I'd always wanted to go to Split, well, for a long time anyway. But I've only been to Zagreb, which is a lovely city. I've been there many times. But Split would have been nice. I know my son Jamie's been there on holiday and he loved it. What's happening with the ban? Well, yes, they continued it. And I just want to point out the extraordinary extremes that we're talking about. Extremes of censorship and extremes of oppression, because I was invited to speak at a peace rally in Amsterdam in the autumn of 2022. And I agreed to go, and I was going to go through the Channel Tunnel, speak for, I don't know, 20 minutes, half an hour, and come home. But all hell broke loose. There was an organization called Cidi, which is a man and a dog Zionist organization, which took exception to me speaking. And although it's a man and a dog organization, it has massive connections going outwards, and not least has quite clearly enormous influence over the Dutch government. So the Dutch government started kicking off about me coming, and then obviously the Dutch media, the mainstream media, who demonized me for 3 weeks without even asking me once for a comment or to go on any of their programs. And the justice minister, well, justice in quote marks, of course, because it's nothing about justice at all, used parliamentary privilege to call me a Jew hater, and that was the level of the demonization. And of course, as you know, if you're banned from one Schengen group country, you're banned from all of them. So they decided that I was going to be banned. And so what the government basically did is said to its intelligence arm, you find a reason to ban him. So they came up with a law which they manipulated massively. It wasn't appropriate at all. Part of it involved me being a level 3 terrorist or something. And interesting, so they banned me for 2 years in 2022. Interestingly, in March 2023, the law they used and manipulated to use was dropped by the Schengen group. I understand, because it was being abused or could be abused. Well, yeah, absolutely. And so a group of very courageous and decent people in the Netherlands, including a lawyer called Jeroen Pols, and Mordecai, a Jewish man, ironically, and others have been challenging the ban in the courts. And there's been a number of court hearings. The first one, you knew what was going to happen, because basically the judge walked in with a rubber stamp in his hand. Government's right. So that was nowhere. But we went to another level, and there was a woman judge who, well, we thought for a bit we've got a bit of a chance here, because she realized that the law under which I was banned no longer existed after March 2023. So she asked the government lawyer to explain, and gave him a certain period of time to explain how are you doing this? How can you do this? And she said she would announce her decision on whether the ban was allowed or not in July of 2023, July the 31st. And so we thought we might have a bit of a chance. And about a week before July 31st, she announced she was delaying her decision. So you knew immediately what that decision was then going to be, and eventually it was. So here's a judge who has so little self-respect that she agrees that the government can ban someone with a law that doesn't exist. But it gets even better or worse, depending on your view, because very recently the Dutch government has announced that because I've not changed my views, I mean, how fascistic is that? They are going to extend the ban for another 2 years. And I remember a government lawyer in one of the court cases saying that if I didn't change my views, the ban could be indefinite. Well, they've started that role with this. And so I'm now banned for another 2 years, or that's what they say they're going to do, with a law that literally does not exist. And of course, banned by one, banned by all, and banned from nearly 30 European countries, as well as Australia and many others if I tried to get in, because there are many other countries, I think the United States, Canada, Australia, well, that don't matter anymore, I'm banned from there, but New Zealand, etc. They use, and others, they use the Schengen criteria to decide if someone's going to be allowed in or not. So it's like, well, if the Schengen group's banning him, then we'll ban him, as the way it goes. So I could be banned from a lot of other countries currently if I try to get in.
Yeah, you could come to Bosnia and Herzegovina, isn't it? It's close to Split. I'm kidding. So thank you so much. It's a shame. I mean, one could even question how is this possible? This freedom of speech actually is, I mean, who puts the limits to it? What is freedom of speech? What is not? It's crazy. Okay, whatever.
Well, I think, you know, talking about the European Union, I think EU countries are going to face tremendous increases in censorship as we move into 2025 and onwards. Sure. Because, you know, in the end, the whole conspiracy of human enslavement is to control perception of the people, because perception means behavior. We behave as we do because we perceive as we do. And so how do we form our perceptions? From information. And the idea is to control the information, therefore control the perception we glean from that information, and therefore control behavior. And when someone like me is going into a country and saying the things that I am, then somehow they've got to try to shut me up. And it's kind of, the whole thing's ridiculous, because I mean, at the moment I can still do interviews like this on the internet. Although for how long will the internet be open to things like this? Given that they have complete control of that, because they created it via an organization called DARPA, which is the technological development arm of the Pentagon. A lot of people don't know that. Therefore, they have a kill switch, and they can control whether the internet even exists or not. So we are in a situation where, you know, it's not just the mainstream of the media, it's not just the mainstream of politics. It's other areas of both that that we need to look at as well. And I'll give you an example. One of the heroes of the so-called alternative media, or a certain part of it anyway, is a guy called Geert Wilders in the Netherlands, who's a kind of radical anti-establishment MP, or so they say. Well, his party, first of all, when my first ban was announced, he said nothing. And since then, his party has become the biggest party in the Dutch parliament. And it's under his overseeing that two things have happened. First of all, I've been rebanned, and he said nothing. Actually, Geert Wilders has banned me, has blocked me on Twitter X. So that's an indication. But also what's happened in the Netherlands, and this is very indicative of where this conspiracy wants to go, is that under Wilders' party, the current prime minister of the Netherlands is not elected. He's a chief of Dutch intelligence. He was actually part of the network that banned me in the first place. And now he's prime minister of the Netherlands. And so what they're looking for, and this is why they're trying to discredit politicians, which, of course, with so many current politicians, is not difficult. It's because they want to replace them with appointed bureaucrats and technocrats and such like, classically like a Dutch intelligence chief becoming prime minister without seeing a ballot box.
Yeah, that's interesting. So, okay, let's talk about the current events. I mean, over the years, you predicted so many things, which initially were met with, you know, ridicule, skepticism. You've been through such a lot of hardship. But later on, it's been proven true. So given the good track record, could you share maybe some perspective on the current events in the world now, but maybe a little bit focus more on this Balkan area, about the current events, but also what do you foresee for the future?
Well, I can't really talk about Europe and the Balkans without talking about the United States, because the two are completely connected.
Sure.
And what's happened with Trump's re-election is a massive sleight of hand. And I'll explain it like this. I have this phrase I've used over the years: and know the outcome and you'll see the journey. In other words, if you don't know what the outcome is planned to be, then events that unfold can be seen as random and unexplainable. Or this happens and that happens and this happens. What's going on? But when you know what the outcome is planned to be, those events cease to be random, and you see them for what they are, which are stepping stones towards that outcome. Stepping stones that I call the totalitarian tiptoe. And so there's another aspect of perceptual manipulation, a very, very important one, and I call it designer manipulation. If you try to manipulate every mentality to the same end, the same outcome, well, you're going to be successful with some if you do it the same way, and you're not going to be successful with others. And this is where designer manipulation comes in. You pitch your manipulation, your story, to that particular mentality. Now, the biggest of all the agendas, there are many endless numbers of them, but they all connect. And the biggest one is this: it's to fuse humans with artificial intelligence, so that artificial intelligence becomes the human mind. Now, this is not me sitting in a darkened room pulling this out the ether. They're telling us this. For years now, a guy who's a Google executive called Ray Kurzweil has been saying that by 2030, humans will be connected to artificial intelligence. In his words, will be connected to the cloud via artificial intelligence, the cloud being an electromagnetic, technologically created field, which is being added to all the time, not just through towers, but low orbit satellites from people, not least the leader in low orbit satellites, SpaceX and Elon Musk. And in Kurzweil's words, once that connection to artificial intelligence is made, artificial intelligence will do more and more of human thinking until human thinking is basically negligible. What he means is deleted. So that's the outcome: to create a human hive mind which has its thoughts and emotional reactions dictated to by, or dictated, not to, dictated by artificial intelligence. So now you're facing, say, two particular groups. You're facing the left in politics, what's become known as the woke, which was not the left that I grew up in. It's a completely different entity, but they call it the left now, woke. And woke basically is rolling over to this, this artificial intelligence agenda. So many people are in the era that have known nothing but smartphones and technological development.
Yes.
And therefore, they're open to all this. So you give them the hard sell narrative, which is that this is the Kurzweil narrative and the Gates narrative and the Klaus Schwab at the World Economic Forum narrative, that we will become like gods. We will become superhuman when we are connected to artificial intelligence. But you've got another group of people who have become increasingly skeptical about the AI agenda and concerned about it. So the hard sell is no good for them. And vast numbers of those are what are known as Trump supporters in America, and they're like around the world. They've become known as the political right or the Christian right. And so you have to design and manipulate them in a different way to get to the same end.
Yeah.
So what's happened is this guy, Elon Musk, has come onto the scene over the last few years. And when he bought Twitter X, well, he bought it, he was allowed to buy it. And major shareholders include the Saudis and the Qataris. So, you know, obviously they care about freedom of speech. And he, first of all, because this global cult, as I call it, this global network of secret societies that are driving the direction of the world, they play the long game. You know, they're not making this up by the hour or by the year or even by the decade. So he said some years ago, Elon Musk, that he was very concerned about artificial intelligence. He said at one point it could be the end of humanity. Well, the end of humanity as we know it, absolutely, that's the idea. So he kind of got on the side of the AI angels, if you like. Oh, yeah, I'm concerned about it. The problem is that ever since he said that, Elon Musk has just rolled out more and more and more of AI, and he continues to do so all the time. He's also putting up through SpaceX low orbit satellites, which are creating, along with the towers in the towns and cities, this cloud, this technologically generated electromagnetic cloud, through which this hive mind is planned to be directed and connected to the human brain through stuff that's going into the body all the time, self-replicating nanostructures, not least most infamously through the fake COVID vaccine, not even a vaccine by previous criteria. So what he then said, Elon Musk, and this is very, very significant, is that I'm concerned about AI. I'm basically on your side, but AI is inevitable. AI becoming more intelligent than humans is inevitable. And so what we have to do is fuse humans and AI for AI to survive, otherwise we'll die out. And that term, inevitable, is a really, really powerful perceptual manipulation technique. Because if you're pushing against something and you're trying to stop it, but you are eventually persuaded that what you want to stop is inevitable, then you go into a completely different mode of response. Now, instead of trying to stop it, you think, well, it's inevitable. So how do we mitigate its impact? And so Elon Musk says, well, I'm on your side. I will do what I can to mitigate its impact. And so the outcome of the soft sell, which I've just described, and the hard sell is exactly the same. It's the fusion of humans and artificial intelligence. And, you know, people have said to me, well, why would Musk buy Twitter X and, you know, say he was in favor of freedom of speech? Well, first of all, it depends who's posting on X. how much the algorithms communicate it and how much they suppress it, so-called shadow banning. That's absolutely rife on the free speech X. But the reason that the major reason, there are others, that he was allowed to buy X, and he was allowed to buy it because, people said, and it was right, that the so-called deep state controlled who could be on X and who couldn't, and what was said and what wasn't. Fine, yeah.
Yeah.
And then when he bought it, Musk released these Twitter files, so-called, or he did for a bit, to show that actually, here's the emails and the documents. Yeah, Twitter was working with the government to ban people on Twitter before Musk. But the question then is, you go through this sequence, you say to people, so what you're saying is that before Musk, the deep state had complete control of Twitter. Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely, yeah, yeah. And then the next question is, so why did they sell it to him then? They didn't have to. In fact, they threatened to take him to court when he was prevaricating on buying it at one point. And he's been allowed to buy Twitter is because before he did, people in the alternative media were calling him out as being a vehicle for this transhumanist agenda and this AI agenda.
Yes.
And from the moment virtually that he bought Twitter X and allowed some of them back on, they're not calling him out anymore. So he's being given, well, some of us don't give him that, but the core, which I say is the hijacked core of the alternative media that's basically come in since COVID, is giving him not only giving him a free ride and not pointing out that he's ticking the boxes of all these different agendas with his companies of the World Economic Forum global cult agenda. They're eulogizing him as some kind of god and hero. So what we're going to see in this Trump administration, where, of course, Elon Musk, unelected, again, technocrat, along with this guy, Vivek Ramaswamy, technocrat, a business partner of Peter Thiel, who is a producer through a company called Palantir of technology for the Pentagon and the intelligence network of surveillance and data processing. And Peter Thiel, who is on the steering committee of the Bilderberg Group, which has been pushing for what people call the globalist agenda since it was formed in 1954. And his fellow founder of this company, Palantir, a guy called Alex Karp, he's also on the steering committee of the Bilderberg Group. And it's Peter Thiel, who, this billionaire AI guy, who was the first private funder of Facebook, made an absolute fortune out of it. He is the funder of the political career, as well as being a business associate, of J.D. Vance, who is Trump's vice president upcoming. Yeah. So you've got all these technocrats. There are others, like there's a guy called Mark Andreessen. Someone else who's who's blocked me on Twitter. And there's others, David Sachs, and these billionaire AI people are all around Trump in that Trump network. And what you're going to see is this. What they've been doing is, this is another extraordinarily powerful technique of perceptual manipulation. You tell people what they want to hear. This is so powerful because when you're telling people what they want to hear, they're already open to what you're saying because they want it to be true. And when Trump comes along and says, I'll fix it, I'll fix everything, they believe him because they want it to be true. It's not true. So he talks about the border, and he talks about the transgender thing, and global, so-called global warming, the climate change hoax, and all that. But this is what I see happening in the Trump administration, and it's going to have obviously an impact on the rest of the world, not least Europe. You're going to see him apparently doing things that he said he would do in these different areas of the border. And, well, you watch the border have an AI solution suggested, and all these other different things. And his supporters are going to be seeing that, and they're going to say, we're winning, Trump's doing it. The thing to watch is that under the cover of that, you're going to see this AI fusion with humans agenda and this AI control agenda where AI takes over society. You're going to see that massively advance very fast. That's why the technocrats are in there. Joe Rogan, who's this podcaster guy with this $250 million contract with Spotify, because he's anti-system, has said recently in an interview with this guy, Mark Andreessen, this AI billionaire guy, that he thinks it would be a good idea to replace politicians with artificial intelligence. And that's straight off the script of the World Economic Forum and the global cult. This is what we need to be watching. And it won't just be happening in America. The plan is for this to be global, obviously. So you're going to see similar things happening in Europe. And the censorship will increase, not least to stop this whole agenda I'm talking about being exposed. Because if you can push your agenda and stop it, the real reason for your agenda being exposed, well, you've got the best of both worlds. You're feeding perception, and you're preventing anyone else with a different perspective from being heard. And the two are going to go together. And in terms of the Trump administration again, and this will be, of course, a big impact on Europe and the world. He has filled his major positions in his government with people who are Israel first, last, and everything in between. He has appointed an ambassador, a US ambassador to Israel, a guy called Mike Huckabee, who's a Baptist minister, or was. And he won't even speak the name West Bank. He insists on calling it Samaria and Judea, because he's completely mesmerized by the biblical version of Israel. And this brings me to a really relevant point, which people should really watch as the months and years unfold. What they're doing, and this is why the whole Trump cabal has really focused on the Christianity vote and the Christian belief system. Because the Christian belief system believes in the Bible. And what they're doing, even the Old Testament, where the Old Testament God is a tyrant. I'm a jealous God. Oh, really? You seem nice, man. But what the Old Testament is all about, of course, is Israel, the story of Israel, and what they claim to be the story of Israel. And there's a prophet called Ezekiel who is said to have prophesied that a third temple will be built on what is now the site of the Al-Aqsa Mosque in Jerusalem, on the site that Christians and Jews call Temple Mount. And what they're doing is making it seem to Bible believers that those prophecies are being made to happen by God, while they are being made to happen by humans. And so a lot of people won't know this, but the plans are already there. The models are already there of the new temple. The prophecy they're following claims that when the new temple is built and we have the Antichrist and then the coming of the Messiah and all that stuff, that Jerusalem will become the golden city of the world and basically be the capital of the world. And what you're seeing is the Palestinians being systematically and grotesquely removed to allow that to happen. Because if you said only literally a few years ago, really, that they were planning to replace the Alaska Mosque with a new Solomon's Temple, people would go, you must be joking. It'd be a bloody bloodbath. I mean, the Palestinians won't have that.
Yeah, yes.
But look what's happened now, both in Gaza, but also in the West Bank and also in Lebanon. You're seeing that clearance going on to allow this to happen. And one of the prophecies is that a red heifer will be born in Jerusalem or in Israel, and it will be sacrificed as part of the coming of the temple. And what they've done is ship some red heifers in and make sure they're made to produce offspring in Jerusalem. And they're supposed to never have a yoke around their neck, so these red heifers never do. And what they're doing is making the prophecies appear to happen through God when actually humans are making it happen. Yeah. But what this is doing, it's pulling in to support all this all the Christians. Well, the Jews will go for it overwhelmingly anyway, though not all. But it's pulling the Christians in because they believe God is making this happen, and it's the end times, and it's the time of the coming of the Messiah. It ain't. It's the coming of the next stage of the plan. So when you look at the defense secretary that Trump's named, you look at the secretary of state, you look at the ambassador to the UN, wherever you look, the attorney general, wherever you look, you've got people, Robert Kennedy Jr. included, who are absolutely vehemently obsessed with Israel and the rights of Israel. And so you're going to see Iran more and more targeted because they want to get Iran out of the way, and what that will do is it will bring Russia and China in as allies of Iran, and you've got your Armageddon unfolding. And you know, a lot of people don't realize this either. There is a plan which is known as Greater Israel. And that plan, which goes way back, is that eventually Greater Israel will include a chunk of Egypt. It will include the whole of Lebanon, the whole of Jordan, a chunk of northern Saudi Arabia, part of Iraq, and a major chunk of Syria. And so what we're looking at now as we're speaking, we're looking at a situation obviously is ongoing since last year in Gaza. We're looking at what's happening in Lebanon. And now this week, it started to kick off in Syria. Now, these things are not by accident. They're by design. And you know, Europe will be pulled into all this. And that's why it's relevant that people in Europe should know this background.
Yes. Thank you so much. You were saying about this dark pyramid. Who sits on top of it? Who or what sits on top of it? I sometimes think, I'm sure actually, that we are in the midst of some kind of spiritual warfare. It's not just, you know, some government here, you know, everything is connected. And as you said, it's been a long time, you know, going on. So maybe can you shed more light on this?
Well, this is where it gets really deep, because
Yes.
this global cult, this network of secret societies, is acting on behalf of a force that operates beyond human sight. And when I say that, people might think it's strange, except that have a look at what human sight involves. According to mainstream science, the electromagnetic spectrum, which is pretty much experienced human reality, is 0.005% of what exists in the universe in terms of energy in all its forms.
Tiny, yeah.
But visible light, which is the only band of frequency that we can see, everything you can see in human vision is within this band of frequency called visible light. And visible light is a smear of the 0.005%. We are basically blind. Think of television channels. We can see one tiny television channel, but in the same space that we are in are endless other channels, dimensions of reality, operating on different frequencies, just like radio dials, etc. So this human body tunes us in, our awareness in, our focus of attention in this tiny band of frequency we call human. And just beyond human sight, not very far out of it in frequency terms, you have entities that are manipulating human society via this global cult. That's the biggest secret of all. And we need to understand this, because once you realize how little we can see and how in the same space that we occupy is basically, not basically, it is infinite reality in all its forms, then you can have a bit of humility in realizing that we don't know it all or anything like it all. And so we are looking at a global cult which has different levels of so-called degree, which means different levels of knowledge. So if you are a Freemason, most Freemasons in the world are on the bottom 3 levels of degree, the so-called blue degrees.
Yes.
And they'll know next to damn all compared with people further up the Masonic pyramid. And it's the same with all these secret societies. So in the end, even the vast majority of people within the secret societies don't know the real inner core knowledge. That's only for the few. And that's why they can manipulate on the scale they do without even vast numbers of their own, quote, knowing what the real game is. And so this non-human force I symbolize as a spider. And the spider operates outside human sight. But within human sight, well, within the human world, hidden from human sight, is this global cult, which works like this. Imagine a spider's web all around the planet. Every strand in the web is either a secret society, a semi-secret group, or governments, government agencies, World Health Organization, big pharma cartel, etc., etc., Silicon Valley. And how it works is this. You've got the spider operating outside of human sight, and that's driving the agenda for humans. The strands immediately around the spider are the most exclusive secret societies. And most of the people, if not all the people in them, don't put themselves on public display. And you come out from the spider, and then you start hitting the secret societies that we do know about. The Freemasons, the inner core of it, the Jesuit order, inner core of it, the Knights Templar, the Knights of Malta, Opus Dei, etc. And they're still in the hidden. And the agenda from the spider, the non-human force, is coming outwards through these secret societies. You then hit what I call the cusp in the web, and that's where the hidden part of the web meets the seen part of the web. And at this cusp level, that's where you have the World Economic Forum, of Klaus Schwab, the Bilderberg Group, the people like Bill Gates, etc. It's where you have the Council on Foreign Relations in America, the Trilateral Commission that operates worldwide. You have the Club of Rome, which was created in 1968 specifically to exploit environmental concerns and invent them to justify centralization of power and dystopia. This is where the whole climate change hoax came out of course by humans, they say. And then you've got in this cusp area, you've got the explosion now of so-called non-governmental organizations, NGOs, many of them funded by people like George Soros. And you've got the equal, if not greater explosion even, of think tanks. And these organizations, their role in all their forms is to take the agenda coming out of the hidden and to play it out into the world of the seen through governments, government agencies, Silicon Valley, World Health Organization, Big Pharma, etc., corporations. And so when you come out into the world that people can identify, it seems again that all these different organizations are random. You have the World Health Organization, you have Silicon Valley, you have the big pharma cartel, you have corporations, and they're kind of separate, but they're not. If all these organizations are compartmentalized, so most of the people within them have no idea what the inner core is doing. And so what you have, if you go deep enough in these organizations, you meet that point where they attach to this web. And at that level, that web level, all these organizations are the same organizations on the same team working to the same outcome. So this is why, for instance, you had when the COVID hoax was played, you had the World Health Organization, which was created by the Rockefeller family in 1948 and is now run by a Rockefeller gopher, very rich one, called Bill Gates. When they announced the narrative of COVID and what people should do, what countries should do, lockdown, etc., and the fake vaccine, the Silicon Valley corporations, you'll remember, said right at the start, we're going to censor anyone that challenges the World Health Organization narrative or the narrative of national health organizations, government health organizations, which were taking their narrative from the World Health Organization. And you think, well, why would that happen? Why would corporations like Facebook and YouTube and such like, why would they censor? They're supposed to be the town square, is where we're supposed to exchange information. Why would they censor the World Health Organization challenges right at the start. Because if you go deep enough in these Silicon Valley corporations, people like Grin and Page at Google, and the people that run YouTube, owned by Google, you look at to Facebook, you're looking at Mark Zuckerberg, etc. You meet those levels, and you're meeting the web. And at the same time, the World Health Organization is attached to the same web. And so what you were having was this part of the web called Silicon Valley defending the narrative from this part of the web called the World Health Organization. And in the same way, the Rockefeller family were the ones that created what we now call big pharma. And so if you remember, big pharma in the form of people like Pfizer and Moderna, etc., they would go to national organizations like the CDC in America and the FDA and the MHRA in Britain. And these organizations are supposed to defend the population from big pharma and make sure it's all trialed and it's all safe. But what was happening is this untrialed, unsafe, quite clearly, COVID fake vaccine was given by these organizations in the different countries immediate permission to be used on younger and younger and younger people, right down to babies in so many examples.
Yeah, and pregnant ladies. That was really red flag. Yeah.
Yeah, and the reason for that is because big pharma is attached to the web, and so are these organizations like the CDC attached to the web, if you go deep enough in them. And so again, you've got the web in the form of big pharma going to the web in the form of the so-called regulatory government organizations asking for permission for a web agenda to be allowed. And this is what's going on all the time. And because this has been going on over a long period, far longer than people could imagine, it means that by now, this global cult working on behalf of this non-human force in the hidden has got such control of the institutions that direct human society that it's one heck of a challenge to turn it around, especially when you have an alternative media that's been infiltrated and hijacked and has turned so much of the alternative media into basically right-wing Christian politics, because they, which is what? Supporting Trump, supporting Musk. It's all a game, and you know, we've got to get streetwise to how the game's really played. Otherwise, it's going to be very difficult to turn this around.
Yes, people always look up to some kind of savior, you know, because they want to believe it and they give their power away. So that's what they want. And here we come to the question of your new book. So the latest book is called The Reveal, The Next Stage of Human Awareness, which actually completes your reality trilogy. So what is the core message of the book, and what are, David, the solution for humanity? What are the solutions?
Well, I mean, the solutions in the end are all down to a simple thing, self-identity. What the reveal does, in conjunction with the other two in the trilogy, the trap and the dream, is expose the scale of the conspiracy, the scale of human control. And in going into those areas of understanding the scale, that's where you find the answers. And of course, what we're seeing with the so-called alternative media is it won't go into those areas that reveal the scale. They're still stuck in its left-right politics and Trump's the savior. And that's why I'm challenging them vehemently and calling them out. So what's kind of driven me in terms of my the direction I've gone for now 35 years is knowing that whatever I think I know, there's always more to know. That's crucial. You know, when we talk, as I did earlier, about the visible light and its ridiculously narrow band of frequency, that alone tells you that there's going to be an absolutely fantastic amount to know that we don't know. And so we need some humility.
Sure.
And we need some intelligence that says, in those situations, in these circumstances, whatever I know, there is always going to be more to know. And so what that does is drive you on. So you get to a point where, okay, I think I've got this level of it, or a good chunk of it, but what don't I know? And that drives you deeper and deeper in the rabbit hole. And what the alternative media has done is stop. And
stop
said,
here, yeah.
This is it. Here and no further. We know all we need to know. What's going on. No, you don't. And so, first of all, from about the mid-1990s, I started to come across, in the early 1990s, it was all about this global cult and uncovering the fact that the people that appear to be in power are not really in power. Prime ministers, presidents, etc. But okay, but what don't I know? And so you go deeper in the rabbit hole. And it took me into this non-human force operating outside of human sight, because to understand what's going on, you've got to study the nature of reality. If we don't understand the nature of the reality we're experiencing, how can we know anything? And most of the alternative media and mainstream science, etc., doesn't study, mainstream medicine doesn't study the nature of reality. That's why it's so ignorant. And so I went into the non-human side of it. And then from about just after the turn of the millennium, I just got this overwhelming feeling that this reality we think is natural is actually a simulated trap, a perceptual trap. And you start to realize that the foundation of the conspiracy is actually to not left-right politics. It's manipulating the target human population to believe it's experiencing a certain reality, which is nothing like they experience it. You know, quantum physics has done a lot to make that obvious, but there's many, many more aspects to that. And what I felt in this period just after the millennium is that what we call the speed of light is what appears to be the fastest speed at this level of the simulation. It's obviously not the fastest speed possible, as Einstein claimed. It's a level of the simulation. And so I started talking about this and I started writing about it. And then from about 2016, 2017, more and more mainstream scientists, and it's gone on since, to present day, started to look at this and go, well, you know, it does look like we're in a simulation, because there are so many things that are mysterious in terms of reality. If you think the reality is natural and just happened, that can be answered very simply when you realize it's a simulation and it's actually been created. And one of them is the laws of physics. When you are creating a virtual reality video game, And this simulation in terms of theme is exactly the same. You encode into the game the limits of the game and how the game can be played. Well, that's what's happened with the simulation, but we call those codes the laws of physics. And this is why when you study, and I have in enormous length, these so-called near-death experiences, where people leave the body when the body ceases to function, and they find themselves in a completely different reality with quite clearly a very different law of physics. That's why this human body is like a biological computer. I've been calling it that since the 1990s. And the biological computer is decoding the simulation in the same way that this computer before me is decoding the internet. And if you said to people, tell me about the internet, they'd say, well, it's moving pictures and graphics and words and etc. on the screen. Yeah, but only on the screen. Everywhere else, it's a Wi-Fi field of information, which is what this simulation is. It's a field of information, which we're decoding, and electronic circuits. And the only place the internet exists in the form that we say the internet is on the screen. Wow. Everywhere else, it's something else in a completely different form. And when you then look at the explanation of mainstream science, even of how we form this reality, we do it through the five senses. And the five senses, that the hearing senses are a classic, obvious example with sound waves, but all the senses work the same way. They're picking up frequency information, and they turn that frequency information into, including the eyes, they turn that frequency information into electrical information, which they communicate to the brain, and the brain then, through different parts of the brain specializing in decoding the different senses, decode those electrical signals, and the brain then forms them together in what we perceive as an external reality, when actually it's all going on in here. I'm looking at this computer. Where is the decoding of the Wi-Fi field going on? Not here, not here, not here, inside the computer. Same with us. And one of the things that I've seen so clearly is the way this technological world that's unfolded so fast of Wi-Fi, computers, AI, how that mirrors the very reality and how we decode it that we are experiencing. And the reveal goes into this whole spectrum of the whole story of my research and how it all fits together, because it does. And it then goes into the next stage, which is what happens when we, quote, die. And what I've kind of realized over the years through endless sources of information fitted together is that this simulation doesn't just happen in what we call the human world. There's another level of it, actually levels, but let's keep it simple. There's another level of it. And that level is called the astral dimension in esoteric terms. And that is the fake heaven. And the idea is that when consciousness leaves the body in a state that we call the soul, it goes into this astral dimension where I've read and watched endless accounts of near-death experiences. And the common themes are very compelling. And I've talked to others as well that have had deeper insights into that, having memories of that realm. And basically, it works like this. These entities operating in the hidden are feeding off human energy. when the Morpheus character in The Matrix held up a battery and said, the Matrix is a computer-generated dream world designed to turn humans into one of these, a battery, it was a profound truth, because these entities are feeding off human energy, and particularly one area of human energy, which is low vibrational energy, which resonates to the emotions of fear, of hatred, of regret, of depression, of resentment, all these different low vibrational states. And so the idea is that within this simulated reality, which has tricked us into believing we're experiencing something we're not, it's to generate experiences, to generate world events, not least through this cult, that will elicit this low vibrational energy, emotional and mental energy that humans give off, and they're feeding off it. But, you know, my question was, when I started to realize all this, and people are seeing the books and the reveal, the detail to support what I'm saying, why would anyone come back here? You know, until I got banned from, you know, all over the place, I traveled the world extensively. I've been to 60 odd countries. And most people in Asia and Africa and Central America, South America, and many, many areas of the West now are not having a good time. They're trying to survive another day often. So when they leave the body, my question was, why the heck would you come back? And so what I've kind of put together in the reveal is what happens when we die. Well, first of all, what is death? This human body is a biological computer. It is decoding the matrix. It's decoding the simulation. And so when the body ceases to function, it ceases to decode the simulation at this level, the human world. So suddenly people find themselves in another reality, because this is not delivering this one anymore. In the same way that when this computer ceases to function, it won't decode the internet anymore. Its screen will be black. Mm. And so the idea is that how do these entities, which in the end is a state of really chaotic, inverted, distorted consciousness, how do they get people to keep consciousness, to keep coming back through what we call reincarnation? And they do it through what Buddhists call the wheel of samsara, by convincing us outside of the body in this astral realm that we need to keep coming back into this world to learn lessons, to evolve, and to pay back our karma. And the number of people that buy that is extraordinary. You've only got to read and watch these near-death experiences to see how they buy that nonsense. You know, reincarnation, I present the evidence in the book, is overwhelming. But I don't buy this idea that reincarnation is about learning lessons. It's a trap. It's to keep us in the trap, and to keep us producing what has become known as loosh, this low vibrational energy. And this is what these entities feed off. And this starts to explain something which appears at the first hearing to be, why would they do that? These satanic human sacrifice rituals. In the 1990s, when I was uncovering the whole cult web, if you like, I started to realize that so many of these rich and famous cultists were involved in satanic rituals and the so-called occult, actually the dark occult. Occult just means hidden. And so you ask yourself, why? And then you realize that back in the ancient world, as we perceive it anyway, they were openly doing the same. They were sacrificing people. They were sacrificing young virgins, children, to the gods. And so, hold on a second. The penny drops that the gods, they're not gods, they're idiots, but they're perceived to be gods, that they were doing the ancient rituals to, and the sacrifice rituals and the ritual murder of children to, are the same gods that these people today are doing their rituals to. And so the next question was, well, in that case, they're doing offerings to the gods, yeah. So what do the gods get out of this then, this sacrifice? And then you realize that it's the same principle. They're feeding off the terror of the sacrificial victim, because terror is a very, very powerful low vibrational energy. And they're feeding off it. That's the gift of the gods. So while in our human world, the Satanists are doing their rituals in their stupid gowns and hoods, etc., they're done in a particular way, which is why, you know, you talk to people who've been involved in these rituals, they say, oh, they're the same rituals they did in ancient Babylon and Egypt. Why? Because if they work, well, why would you change them? No. And they're producing this terror frequency, which they're giving off. I mean, it's well known by mainstream science that every time we feel an emotion or we have a thought, we're generating a frequency. And the frequency relates to the nature of the emotion and the nature of the thought, which is why fear and all these other low vibrational emotions have low vibrational frequency effects, which these feed off. So what they're doing is conducting their ritual, but in the astral, very close to this reality, but outside of human sight, they're feeding off the terror coming off the victim. And, you know, when you see someone in an emotional state, you can see by their body language and their facial expressions the kind of emotional state they're in. What you can't see is the frequencies they're giving off as a result of that. Why? Because that is an astral phenomenon. It's going into this astral dimension. It's operating outside of human visual sight. And in the astral, the lower level of the astral, they're feeding off these frequencies that the sacrificial victims are giving off, and that humans in general are giving off in their low vibrational state. And so we hear a lot of talk, not least around Washington, D.C., of rich and famous people doing rituals and drinking adrenochrome, they call it, blood with an adrenaline in it. Well, that comes from the same source, because when the terror reaches a certain level, an adrenaline starts to enter the blood. And the Satanists in this reality drink that, and it's like a drug to them. It's like it gives them a high. And so when you think of the horror that we're talking about, and the horrific things that they do in these rituals, anyone think these people are going to have any care whatsoever about the horrors they visit upon humans in general, in wars and famines and suppression and et cetera, et cetera? No,
they want it. They want that. Yes.
Yeah, they want it. They it's their energetic source. And so that's what we're dealing with. And so what I do in the reveal is I cover this whole spectrum that I've been talking about, from the global cult secret society network right across to this whole reincarnation trap. Because, you know, this is why I said earlier about the answer is self-identity. Self-identity is basically the stadium in which this is all played out. They want to control our self-identity because then they control our frequency. If you believe that you are just a little me who has no power, and I'm just working on the checkout or driving a bus, and that's who I am, then the frequency you're operating on is very low indeed, because your self-identity is so limited, your perception of who you are. So the frequency you're giving off and operating on and interacting with is subsequently limited. And people like that are overwhelmingly perceiving the world only through the five senses. So they're in the world, they're in the matrix, and they're of the matrix in terms of their perception of reality. So that's one explanation of life that we're given, that we just somehow come out of some primordial soup and, you know, suddenly became what we are. The other alternative that we're given overwhelmingly is that there is an afterlife for the soul, and we've got to keep God happy, so we'll be in a good place when we die and not a bad place. In other words, God is all powerful, and you are little me who has to bend the knee to God. And what I'm saying is that the religious God or gods that religions are worshipping, not necessarily every last one, but the major ones, absolutely, are actually the very force that's created this emulation. They are worshipping their prison warders, thinking that it's a loving God. And I say to people, look at the world. Would a loving God create that? Look at it. Look at history. Look at what's happened. It's been a low vibrational, loose energy generation machine, human society. Why would a loving God create that? It's not a loving God that you are worshipping through your religions. It's the creator of the matrix, the creator of your prison. And so it's a real perceptual trick. And you've almost got to admire the nerve of it.
Yes.
That people in the religions say they oppose something called Satan or Shaitan in Islam, or Yaldabaoth in the Gnostic view, and all these different Samael in Judaism, etc. They are opposing this negative force. Okay. But what I've concluded from my research now of 35 years is that this Satan is also being worshipped under another guise as a loving God. And so if you can be kept in the self-identity that you're a cosmic accident that comes out of nowhere and is going into nowhere, or that you are subject to some judgmental God, that state of belief, awareness, holds you in the frequency band of the simulation. This one, this level of it, this human level, and the astral level of it. And you keep going in this wheel of samsara indefinitely until you realize that it's all a perceptual trap to keep you here, to keep you as a loosh producer on the loosh farm. And you realize that you are not your body, you are not your human identity, they're just experiences. You're not even your soul, which is just a vehicle to interact with the astral level. You are spirit. You are simply awareness, a state of being aware, ultimately. No form, no body, just awareness, a state of being aware. And ultimately, all awareness, because we're all part of the same consciousness, which so many people think they're worshipping in the form of, quote, God, but they're worshipping the wrong God. And, you know, there's this very telling phrase, energy flows where attention goes. When you focus on something with your attention, your energy is flowing towards that. That's where we get our focus from. And so if you perceive that you are worshipping some God and praying to some God, and you're focusing upon what you perceive that God to be, then you are actually making an energetic connection to that force, which allows it to leech and vampire your energy. But once you get into the self-identity that we are awareness, that we are ultimately all awareness, if we would open our consciousness fully, then you start resonating a completely different frequency that relates to that state of identity. You start to connect with that level of awareness, and therefore you connect with the infinite rather than the fake. And this is what we call awakening. Awakening is not something that just happens. It's a series of awakenings. This is why when you go with the premise of whatever I know, there's always more to know. As you know more and know more, you're going through greater and greater and greater an expansion of awakening. And at the end of that road, you realize that we are just awareness. And we are then, when we leave the body, we are resonating to a frequency that cannot be held in the matrix, that cannot be held in the simulation, because there are levels of this simulation that are like energetic barriers. But energetic barriers don't exist when you are of a certain frequency. You just through them, they don't exist. It's the same thing as if you, in the old analog radio system, you have interference because the frequency that you're on is being interfered with by another frequency that's very close on the dial. You can be affected. One frequency can affect another. In terms of the simulation, it can hold you inside it. But if your frequency is of your radio station is so far away from this station, station A, station B is far enough away from this one doesn't exist. There is no interference because to this station, that station doesn't exist. To that station, this station doesn't exist. They all operate in the same space, but they're on such different wavelengths, they don't interfere with each other. And that's the principle that allows you in that self-identity of the I, who you are, being just a state of awareness. And all this crap we call the human world being there to entrap our perception and thus entrap our frequency to hold us within its walls. And, you know, we are way, way, way beyond, as we're talking about this, where this so-called alternative media is. Vote for Trump, he's the savior. Yeah, no. If you want a savior, look in the mirror. There he is, there she is. By persuading us to give our power away to some other individual, like a Trump or a prime minister or a president, whatever, that's the whole idea of politics. It was the whole idea of royalty. Give your power away to your betters, your masters. We have to grow up as a human race. We have to mature bloody fast and realize that that was all a diversion to get us to continue to believe in little me, which will make sure we're still in the matrix. And I'll just say this to finish. What's fascinating is when you study accounts of those that have experienced this astral dimension, this fake heaven, and you study the near-death experiences and what they say, very compelling common themes, like I say, you realize that the dynamic of the human world and the dynamic of the astral fake heaven are the same in this sense. Because people are persuaded, manipulated, programmed from cradle to grave to believe they're little me, they look to their perceived betters, which is authority. It's scientists and doctors, and politicians, and people, to tell them what to think, to tell them what to believe, to tell them what to do. And then when you read these accounts of the astral realm, the dynamic is just the same. The death experiences talk about leaving the body, being bewildered. And then their religious heroes, depending on the religion they were following in the human world, appear. And elders or spirit guides and guardians, all these nonsense, they appear and they're the new authority. And because, for various reasons I explain in the book, the consciousness is, when it leaves the body, is bewildered. It doesn't know where it is. It should do, because reincarnation should have experienced it many times. But there is a mind wipe that goes on. I talk about that in the book. But anyway, because they're bewildered, they look to their perceived betters to tell them what to do. And so these figures appear and tell them that they've got to go through basically the wheel of samsara and go back into the human world eventually to learn more lessons. And you've only got to do the research to realize that the dynamic of control in the fake heaven, astral, is the same basic dynamic as we have here. And we need to stop giving our power away, stop looking for saviors, stop looking for messiahs, and realize that the power is with us and always was.
Do you, David, believe like in supreme being, the one who is the source of awareness, the source of everything, or we are it?
Well, yeah. Of course, there's a source of everything. There's a source of what we call consciousness, awareness, and we are part of it. You'll notice in the religions, because the religions are human made, of course, and you'll notice that if you start to talk about we are an expression of God, it's like blasphemy. You can't say that. Blasphemy. God has got to be above us. And take consciousness. What I call the infinite, other people call God, the infinite level of it. It is aware that it is all consciousness. It is aware that it is all creation, that it is all possibility waiting to manifest. But you can so entrap other aspects of that consciousness that it forgets the nature of who it is and instead starts to believe in what I call its phantom self. It believes it's human instead of it's having a human experience, brief. It believes it's a soul in the astral that has to reincarnate to learn lessons to evolve. And what I'm saying is, this is why I'm so focusing on self-identity. Both of those self-identities will keep you resonating a frequency that holds you in the simulation. Once you realize that we are awareness and that this infinite awareness is we are an expression of that. And what happens is, as you become aware that you are awareness, that you are aware that you are ultimately all awareness, what are you doing? You're starting to fuse and reconnect with that level that is all awareness. You know, there are biblical tales that you can decode, symbolize as what I'm saying. And one of them is the prodigal son. The prodigal son who left the father. And of course, the son is an expression of the father in those terms. And you can stay with the father, or you can go walkabout and end up here. But whatever, the father, quote, the infinite, is there when you want to, when you choose, when you wake up enough to remember that you're part of that, always have been. And you return to the Father. And it's apparently deep stuff, but it's very simple, really. What your frequency is resonating on, which means your self-identity and your perceptual state, is the energetic frequency that you'll interact with. And if you believe you're human, then you're stuck here. If you believe you're a soul, then you're stuck there. When you realize that you are just a state of awareness, ultimately all awareness, gone, home. Bye, see you.
That's really inspiring. Thank you very much. I just want to say to our viewers that David's latest book, The Reveal, as well as his other works, are available on his official website, davidicke.com, but of course also on Amazon. And hopefully we will soon have it available in Croatian through his publisher, Teledisc. Yeah, so far we still don't have it, but let's hope. It's going to happen. Thank you, David, so much for your time and for joining the Atma podcast. Your insights will definitely inspire our viewers to think deeply about the stuff, about everything, and to expand the perceptions. I wish you all the best in your future work, and stay strong, never give up. And I hope to see you soon. I hope to see you in Split. I hope to see you in Split someday, really.
Well, maybe have a word with the Schengen group, then we might. See ya. Bye.
Yeah. Dear viewers, thank you so much for joining us for this inspiring episode with David Icke. Until next time, stay strong and stay aware.